All right, so this deep dive, this one's a little different.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a fictional story, you know?
interesting.
It's about a woman's near-death experience.
Yeah.
And, well, it kind of goes off the rails a bit. It spirals into a whole spiritual crisis thing.
I see.
But stick with me on this one because
Okay.
even though it's not like our usual sources,
Right.
there's a lot to unpack here, a lot to think about.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
So, the story centers on this woman, Megan Parker.
Megan Parker.
Yeah, she's a single mom, struggling. You know how it is?
Yeah.
Just trying to make ends meet in Charlotte. And she's looking for hope, looking for some kind of guidance, you know?
Sure. Who isn't looking for that?
And that's where Ryan Jacobs comes in.
Okay.
He's this charismatic preacher.
Charismatic preacher.
Yeah, all about the prosperity gospel.
Promising blessings and abundance.
Exactly. And Megan, she's drawn to that message.
Makes sense.
She wants things to get better for her and her son.
Of course, yeah.
And, I mean, wouldn't we all?
Sure, but this story, it goes somewhere unexpected with this, right?
Oh, yeah. It definitely takes a turn.
Oh, okay.
So Megan, she's in this car accident.
Oh.
And boom, she's having this classic near-death experience.
Like the ones we hear about.
Totally. Right out of those NDE accounts.
Yeah.
You know, leaving her body, seeing the wreckage from above,
Yeah.
then the tunnel of darkness, the whole thing.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's like it's ripped from the pages of Raymond Moody or something.
Right, like those classic accounts that that researchers like Moody and Bruce Grayson document.
Exactly.
The out-of-body part, the tunnel, even that feeling of peace that some people report.
Right.
But here's the thing: what makes this story different is the setting, the landscape. You know?
Oh yeah, the hellish part.
Right. It's not your typical heavenly light NDE.
Oh,
Megan finds herself in this terrifying, almost demonic place.
and that's when I really started to think, okay,
Yeah.
this is more than just another near-death experience story. It's using that as a framework to get at something deeper, something psychological.
Interesting. You're saying it's like a literary device.
Yeah, like her subconscious fears and anxieties, they're all manifesting in this terrifying
It's
landscape.
classic symbolism,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Using that to represent her internal turmoil.
And then there's the demon.
Oh yeah, the demon. What about him?
He confronts Megan with these very specific accusations. You know, he's saying she sought comfort over truth,
Comfort over truth.
trusted in empty promises,
Okay.
prioritized material gain over spiritual growth, all that.
And these accusations, they're not random, are they?
Not at all.
They're directly tied to Ryan Jacobs' teachings, the whole prosperity gospel thing.
Bingo, that's the key.
So we're not just dealing with a scary story here.
No way.
This is about the very real impact of certain belief systems.
Right. It makes you think, are we really looking for truth?
Truth.
Or are we just drawn to whatever makes us feel good in the moment?
That's the question, isn't it? Even if it's not really true, or even beneficial in the long run.
Right.
And the story takes it even further when,
What, with Ryan Jacobs?
yeah,
Yeah.
Megan sees him in this hellish landscape too.
And he's not just there, he's tormented.
Not just physical pain, but also by the suffering he's caused.
It's like the story's saying, hey, actions have consequences.
Accountability, right?
Yeah, and it's not just about Megan's choices.
No.
It's about the responsibility of those in positions of spiritual authority.
Right, and you pointed out that there are other figures too.
Oh yeah, pastors, authors, influencers.
Why include them? What do you think?
I think it's making a bigger point, you know?
Bigger point.
It's saying this isn't just about one guy or one teaching.
Mhm.
It's a warning against blindly following anyone,
Oh, I see.
even those who seem like spiritual authorities.
Even them.
The story is pushing us to be discerning,
Discerning, yeah.
to critically evaluate what we're hearing,
Especially those messages that promise easy answers.
especially those.
Or the ones that put so much emphasis on material wealth.
Exactly. Are we seeking truth or just comfort?
That's a good question.
And then everything changes.
Changes how?
Jesus arrives.
Whoa!
It's like night and day.
So what happens?
Light bursts through the darkness, demons cowering.
Wow.
Jesus comes in with this feeling of total authority.
Serious stuff.
And his words to Megan, they're direct, no messing
He
around.
doesn't mince words, huh?
Not at all. He rebukes her for her misplaced faith,
For her misplaced faith.
calls her out for clinging to empty promises, emphasizes seeking his truth.
Not material comfort.
Exactly.
That's a pretty powerful statement against the prosperity gospel, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's a head-on challenge.
It's like it's saying faith isn't about getting what you want.
Right.
It's about repentance, about surrender.
But if Megan's rejecting the prosperity gospel,
What's left?
what is the foundation of her new faith?
Yeah, the story mentions community discipleship.
But what does that actually look like?
That's a great question, and the narrative.
Who does
It kind of leaves that open to interpretation.
Okay.
It doesn't give us a clear picture of Megan's new faith,
Interesting.
but it does emphasize certain things.
Like what?
Seeking truth for its own sake, aligning actions with beliefs,
Yep.
and finding a community that supports growth.
So it's less about doctrines
Doctrines, right?
and more about a lived faith.
Lived faith, yeah.
One that's grounded in action, in community.
Exactly. It's a shift in focus
A shift from what to what.
from chasing external rewards to cultivating internal transformation.
And then, just as suddenly as it started,
What happens?
Megan's pulled back to her body,
Oh, wow.
wakes up in the hospital, disoriented but alive.
So a classic NDE element.
Classic.
It emphasizes how transformative this experience was for her.
Totally. Megan is changed, shaken to her core.
We're left wondering how this will affect her life,
Yeah, how she'll make sense of it all.
how she'll reconcile it with her old beliefs.
Well, we've covered a lot,
We have.
from near death to spiritual reckoning.
It's a lot to process.
This story is packed with symbolism,
And psychological insights.
not to mention the theological challenges
It's asking some tough questions.
about faith, trust, the choices we make.
Definitely.
And this is just the beginning.
There's more.
Oh yeah, when we come back, we'll look at the aftermath of Megan's experience,
Okay.
explore how it all plays out in her life, and what it might mean for all of us.
I'm ready when you are. So we left off with Megan waking up in the hospital.
Yeah, back in the real world.
Changed by her experience,
It's one thing to have this crazy spiritual encounter,
Crazy.
but how does it actually affect her life?
That's the question, right? How does it all play out?
I mean, going from chasing prosperity to facing a literal hell.
That's got to be a shock.
That's got to mess with your head.
And the story shows us that transition.
Okay, well, wait.
Megan's not suddenly enlightened or anything.
No, it's not a magical transformation.
No, she's grappling with what psychologists call cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance, what's that?
It's like well, think about it. Her whole worldview.
Was built around Ryan Jacobs' teachings.
Exactly. And now she's got this experience that contradicts all of that.
So it's like a trauma almost.
In a way,
How do you even process something that shakes your core beliefs like that?
it's not just about changing your mind.
It's deeper than
It's about rebuilding your understanding of the world,
that. Of your place in it.
of what really matters.
Okay, so what are the practical challenges for Megan?
Well, for one, her relationships are affected.
Oh yeah, her son Liam.
He's been exposed to Ryan Jacobs' teachings too.
So how does she explain all this to him?
Right. How does she bridge that gap without alienating him?
Tough situation.
It is, you want to be honest with your loved ones,
Yeah,
but you don't want to force your beliefs on them.
especially a child.
Exactly, especially someone who's still figuring things out for themselves.
And then there's her church community.
Right. The story mentions she turns away from Ryan Jacobs' ministry.
That's a big step.
It is.
It's not just about changing your mind.
No.
It's about leaving your support system.
Because for a lot of people, their church is more than just a place of worship,
It's a community.
a sense of belonging.
Friends.
And walking away from that can be incredibly isolating.
Even if it feels like the right thing to do.
And the story doesn't shy away from that difficulty.
So how does she rebuild?
Finding a new community that aligns with your values, that takes time.
It's a process.
It's like starting over, rebuilding your spiritual life from scratch.
But if she's rejecting the prosperity gospel, what's left?
What's the foundation of her new faith?
Right, the story mentions her reading the Bible.
Great, she dives into the Bible.
What, is that enough?
Well, the story doesn't give us all the answers.
It leaves some things open.
It does.
Intriguing.
But it does highlight some key themes.
Seems like.
Seeking truth for its own sake, aligning your actions with your beliefs,
Good.
finding a community that supports your growth.
So it's less about finding the right doctrines
Right.
and more about developing an authentic faith.
A lived faith.
One that's grounded in action and community.
That's a great way to put it.
So it's a shift in focus from external rewards.
To internal transformation.
And that's got to be a challenge.
It is, it's a process.
She's bound to have doubts.
Of course, there will be moments where she questions everything.
I bet it's not easy to go from believing in blessings to embracing sacrifice and service.
No, there's got to be a part of her that misses that old certainty.
That promise of a better life.
Exactly. Exactly.
But maybe that's part of spiritual growth.
Spiritual maturity.
Right, moving from blind faith to something more critical, more questioning.
And then integrating those doubts into a mature understanding of faith.
It makes you think about Ryan Jacobs.
How so?
He's got the charisma, the outward success.
But you're saying something's missing?
Yeah, a lack of authenticity maybe?
Maybe even a fear of facing those harder truths.
Interesting point.
It shows that external success doesn't equal spiritual maturity.
So the story is pushing us to ask, what does it really mean to live a faithful life?
Is it about material wealth or something deeper?
Something more aligned with our values or purpose.
Right, and that's a question we all have to grapple with.
Regardless of our specific beliefs.
It's about finding our own path, what resonates with us.
And having the courage to follow that path.
Even when it challenges us or leads us in unexpected directions.
That's what I find so compelling about Megan.
See, too, it's not a simple conversion narrative.
It's more nuanced than that.
It's an exploration of faith, of reconciling belief and experience.
And of this ongoing process of spiritual growth. It's a reminder that faith isn't static.
It's a journey.
A constant evolution.
And sometimes the most profound growth comes from the most unexpected places.
Like a near-death experience that shatters your world.
And forces you to rebuild from the ground up.
It's in those moments of crisis when our beliefs are challenged.
That we have the opportunity to discover who we really are.
To find our own strength.
And to define what we truly stand for.
This has been a really thought-provoking discussion.
It has.
And we've just scratched the surface of Megan's story.
There's so much more to explore.
When we come back, we'll look at the lasting impact of her experience.
And the choices she makes.
And the lessons her story holds for all of us.
No matter our own beliefs or backgrounds.
All right, we're back and still thinking about Megan's story.
Yeah, what happens after the hospital?
Right, all the dramatic stuff. It's powerful.
But what about real life, right?
Exactly. How does she actually live with this experience?
Well, I think that's where the story gets even more interesting.
How?
So it shifts, you know? It goes from this fantastical realm back to the everyday, the normal stuff.
Okay.
It's not about demons and angels anymore. It's about Megan dealing with family, community.
Speaking.
Yeah, with all the messiness that comes with that.
So what does she do? What are her choices like now?
The story shows us how she starts engaging with her faith differently.
Differently?
She's not just passively accepting things anymore.
Right.
She dives into the Bible, but not just reading it.
So what is she doing?
She's wrestling with it, thinking critically, forming her own interpretation.
So it's about taking ownership.
Ownership.
Not just inheriting beliefs, but making them her own.
Exactly, and remember what we talked about before.
The stages of faith development.
Right, she's moving to a more mature understanding.
Not just rebelling, but seeking something deeper.
And she's not doing it alone.
The community aspect.
Right, she finds a new church.
One that's different from Ryan Jacobs'.
Yeah, one that focuses on discipleship, service.
Not just prosperity.
It's about living your faith, not just talking about it.
Wow, that's a big change.
It is. It's a shift in focus.
From personal gain to something bigger,
And
right?
to contributing to something larger than yourself.
It makes me wonder if that's the real point of the story.
The real point.
This critique of individualism, you know?
It's definitely a major theme throughout.
Yeah, connecting back to those accusations from the demon.
Seeking comfort over truth.
Prioritizing worldly gain.
It's like the story is saying true fulfillment comes from something else.
From aligning your actions with your values. Serving a purpose beyond yourself.
And that's something everyone can relate to.
Right, even if you're not religious.
It's about self-reflection, taking responsibility.
Finding meaning in something bigger than yourself.
Exactly, that's the power of stories like this.
Even if you don't believe everything in it.
The message still resonates.
But I'm guessing there are challenges, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It can't be easy to live out these new beliefs.
Especially when those around you might not understand.
Her family, her friends who still believe in the prosperity gospel.
There's bound to be tension there. Judgment, maybe.
It can be tough to distance yourself from those beliefs.
And isolating, like you were saying before.
Having your worldview shattered.
Right. It affects everything.
But the story shows Megan finding strength.
Where does she find it? In her new community, in that shared support system.
So it's about finding your tribe, the people who get it.
Who support your journey, even when it's difficult.
Because let's face it, personal growth can be lonely.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
It really has.
So much to think about.
So many layers to unpack.
Before we wrap up, is there a key takeaway for our listener?
You know, what struck me most is Megan's agency.
Her agency, okay.
She doesn't just passively accept what happens.
Right.
She questions, she seeks, she makes conscious choices.
He takes control.
Yeah, and that's powerful no matter what you believe.
It's like that saying, we can't always choose our circumstances, but we can choose our attitude.
Love that, so true.
Megan's story reminds us we have that power
The power to shape our lives, to find meaning, even in the tough times.
to create a life that reflects who we truly are,
Beautifully said, a message of hope and resilience.
and the enduring human spirit, always seeking, always growing.
It's been a pleasure diving into this video.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
To our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Some new perspectives, maybe even a little inspiration for your own journey.
Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep growing.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.